Hello, I'm Jonas Saul. I'm going to read from Sarah Roberts' book 1. Sarah Roberts, there are 20 books in the series. Book 21 comes out next year. Sarah is an automatic writer. Yeah, it's a version of clairvoyance. I'll read you a line from the back. When Sarah blacks out, she wakes to find prophetic messages mysteriously written in her own hand. So she wakes up to these messages and then tries to decipher what they mean and go out and save a kidnapping victim or help somebody. She's pretty certain that she won't find trouble, but she does. In book 1, she's 18 years old. By book 20, she's 27. A reviewer on Amazon said, "If Sarah Roberts is your friend, she'll walk through hell to protect you. If you're her enemy, she'll send you there." And I thought that was really good, because that's really who Sarah is. So I will read from chapter 1 of book 1. This is where we meet her. Sarah Roberts checked her watch. 10:15 a.m. 3 minutes until the precognition came true. She found a few stray hairs above the nape of her neck, then tugged them out. A sharp pain fanned out and soothed her as she lay back on the dirty cement. Vehicles crossed the bridge above. Maybe next time she would pack a pillow. The slope angled down toward a small river at 45 degrees. The grass to either side looked more comfortable, but the message had been specific. If there was anything Sarah had learned, it was to follow the instructions with absolute precision. Sit directly under the St. Elizabeth Street Bridge, 10:18 a.m. Bring hammer. The hammer sat beside her on the cement with no apparent purpose. She checked the time again. 10:17 a.m. The few hairs left on her forearm stood as a chill coursed through her. Within 1 minute, something was going to happen. Sarah picked up the hammer. Her pulse quickened. She looked down at a pile of cigarette butts and focused on her breathing. Keep it steady, she thought, exhaling slowly. Just wait for it. The smell of rotting fish wafted up from the river. The water lapped gently at the shore. At any other time, the sound would have been soothing. Cars continued to cruise over the bridge. Something louder, a semi-truck maybe, came and went. She glanced at her watch one last time. 10:18 a.m. A tire screeched, a horn blared. The sound of metal hitting metal made her jump. She involuntarily covered her head with her arms. Another set of tires squealed before the sound of splintering wood signaled the guardrail had been hit. A vehicle came into view at an impossible angle. It fell toward the river, followed by shards of the guardrail. The car hit the water roof first and wallowed upside down. The passenger side canted slightly upward. Sarah grabbed the hammer and scrambled down the embankment. She reached the car in seconds. A woman who looked to be in her 20s was trapped in the driver's seat, her arms dangling toward the water that was seeping in. A small line of blood trickled down her forehead into her hairline. She appeared to be unconscious. There were no other passengers. The river was quite shallow this close to land. It rushed by just below Sarah's knees, but it was high enough to cover the driver's head. An odd thought struck her. How come the precognition didn't mention proper footwear? Mom's going to be pissed that I soaked my new shoes. She grabbed the handle and tried to open the door. It didn't budge. She tried the back door. It was also stuck or locked. She looked across to the other side of the car. The doors on that side were bent inward from the crash. Her stomach churned when she looked at the woman. The water had risen to her hairline and was swirling around the top of her head. Time was running out. People yelled down from the bridge, asking if everyone was okay. Water was now touching the woman's eyebrows. The hammer. She looked at the hammer in her hand. If she bashed the driver's side window, it would shatter and could hurt the woman. She would have to enter through the back door window. She raised the hammer and whacked the pane. Nothing happened. She snuck a peek at the woman. Her eyes were submerged now. Sarah guessed she had less than a minute. She swung back farther, twisting with her hips, and shouted as she struck the window again. The pane shattered and blew inward. She used the hammer to remove stray pieces of glass still attached to the doorframe. The cold water made her gasp when she dropped down on all fours. She crawled as fast as she could into the back seat while trying to keep from being cut by the floating shards of glass. From the back, she angled herself between the front seats and lifted the woman's head just as the water brushed her nostrils. And that was where she was stopped. It would be difficult to undo the seatbelt that suspended the driver. How could she push or drag her from the car? It was impossible for Sarah alone, especially since she couldn't go through the driver's side door. She would have to remain leaning on her side, holding the woman's head up against her shoulder. She used a free hand to cling to the steering wheel. The water level stopped rising as the car settled on the river bottom. Until help arrived, she had done all she could do. It was over. Minutes later, sirens wailed in the distance. And not soon enough, she thought. Her adrenaline began to ebb, and the shivering took hold. Though she was losing strength, Sarah held the woman's head above the water until the firemen reached the river. They cut through the driver's side door and removed the woman's seatbelt, lifting the driver out. Another fireman helped Sarah from the car and up to the top of the bridge. A paramedic handed her a blanket. She sat on the bumper of an ambulance as an officer fired questions at her. Had she been a passenger? Did she see the accident? How was she involved? As always, she was evasive. She hated cops. She told the police officer she would answer his questions after she warmed up. Paramedics were fitting a neck brace on a man in a minivan as his family looked on. A garbage truck had lost one of its wheels, which caused the accident. In the confusion, Sarah dropped the blanket and disappeared behind the ambulance. She adjusted the red bandana she wore to cover her missing hair. She didn't want to be remembered as the girl with no eyebrows and hardly any hair in her head. Without the bandana, she would draw a lot more attention. She started running. She had to get home before her mother asked too many questions. She hated having to lie to her.